Bossk collectors, and welcome to another Bossk Bounty video. Welcome to episode 79 of Ask Bossk Bounty, the weekly series where you ask me questions in the comment section below and I do my very best to answer them each week. So if you do have a question for next week's episode, don't forget to leave it in the comment section below and hopefully you will be featured next week. Loads and loads of cool questions again this week to go through. So if you do happen to enjoy the video, don't forget to drop a like down below. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Thank you to everybody that got me past 16,000 subscribers. And also thank you to everybody that was on the live stream and the chat last night. Thank you to my guests, Mark Shabby Geek, Matt from Universal Collector, and Andy from the Holo Chronicles. Thank you all for being my guests on the stream. It was awesome. Had a really good time. And bring on the next milestone, whatever that may be. Also on the live stream, I did a giveaway, so congratulations to Wesley Summers. You won the Greedo, so congratulations. That will be in the post to you this week. And to celebrate 16,000 subscribers, there will be another giveaway for my Patreon supporters. I mentioned this on the live stream last night as well. I'll be giving away the Zutton vintage collection figure to you guys, so stay tuned for that. And while we're on the subject of Patreon, I did want to just thank my most recent Patreon who signed up yesterday. Thank you so much, Slappy Fez. And that's your name on there. Thank you so much for the support, my friend. And of course, if anybody else did want to support the channel on Patreon, the link is in the description below. And whilst I'm here, I do want to say a massive thank you to a fan of the channel and friend, John Baldry, for sending me all the way from the States the latest wave of reissue vintage collection figures. We have the Han Solo Endor there, so be sure to look out for a review of that figure. We have the Emperor's Royal Guard, which is awesome, and we also have the Luke Skywalker Hoth. He was able to pick up those from his local Walmart. Thank you so much, my friend. Really, really appreciate it. Pesto Pizza 2001 says, hello, how many more of the vintage collection original 96 figures need to be released? So I did a quick rough count this morning and I think I got it down to about 43. That does include all of the figures that haven't been re-released yet from the Vintage Saga collection and the Vintage Original Trilogy collection. It also includes people like Red Snaggletooth, because as far as I'm concerned, the Zutton figure doesn't count as the Red Snaggletooth. That original card back and figure hasn't been done from the original 96 yet, so that doesn't count. So I counted about 43. I may be one or two off, but there's still a long way to go for Hasbro to do, so come on Hasbro, keep knocking them out. Todd Smith says, hey Bossk Bounty, I just started collecting the vintage collection. Yesterday I started by buying a barge. That's a massive start, mate, believe you me. 2 skiffs and the 3-pack of skiff guards. What figures would you recommend I get next? I only like the original trilogy, thanks for the great videos. Well, I think you would need to get the other Jabba's goons, so I'd look out for the Gamorrean guard. You'd need the 2 Weakways, you need the Klaatu skiff guard. Kithaba would also be a good one, and of course the Nikto as well. So there's plenty for you to get. Some of those are pretty expensive now though, so I wish you all the best in getting them. Marco Martinez says, hello Bossk Bounty, Marco from the Bronx, USA. There is a group of us here in the Bronx that respect and like your work. Continue doing it. Thank you very much, my friend. Our question is concerning the Mandalorian characters. Will Hasbro ever make Bo-Katan, Koska and Axe in the vintage collection? I know my daughter likes the female characters but only collects 3.75 inch in scale. So I am still convinced, or maybe it's just blind hope, I do not know, that the next 3-pack this year, we got the ARC Troopers last year, they knocked it out of the park with it. It was an amazing 3-pack, and I think if they could do one this year for those 3 characters, Bo-Katan, Koska Reeves and Axe, in a 3-pack, I mean, wow, that would just go down an absolute storm. We need all those 3 characters. It would sell like absolute hotcakes, and of course they could repack them on single cards because the carded collectors are going to want them on single cards as well. So come on Hasbro, as usual, please give us those Mandalorian figures from The Mandalorian. SLDN74 says, hey Bossk, thanks for your videos. New subscriber to the channel. Thank you so much, my friend. I have a question for next week. I was rewatching the Clone Wars before the Bad Batch premiered and realised that they never released a Duchess Satine figure in any line. Do you think we'll ever get one? And what's your pick for never released characters? I'm not sure we'll ever get a Duchess Satine. I hope so, mate, but I can't see it happening with all the other things they've got to do. But in terms of what's my pick for a never released character, for me it has to be the Tonnika Sisters. There is a hashtag and a campaign going around at the moment for Time for Tonnika, created by Victoria's Cantina. Please sign the petition. The link is in the description below. It is Time for Tonnika. We need those on card and loose for our Mos Eisley Cantina setups. Ryan Schultz says, question for next week. Would love to see a vintage collection Imperial Shuttle with the Emperor for anniversary of Return of the Jedi. What are your thoughts and thanks? Well, I don't think you're going to have to be waiting too long for the Emperor. He is heavily rumoured to be coming out this year with an all-new sculpt. which will be hopefully fantastic. And maybe, just maybe, they do have their eyes on the Imperial Shuttle, because they are or have re-released the Emperor's Royal Guard. If the Emperor's coming, then sometimes these things work like that they do that because they're wanting to do other things. Now, they brought out the big Millennium Falcon again last year. Could they go and do the Imperial Shuttle? If they did, I would imagine it would probably be a repaint of the one that they've always given us. But again, we have never had it in the vintage collection, so who knows? That would be pretty cool. Bill Polk says, question Tim, how did Little Bossk and you celebrate May the 4th? I'm ashamed to say, Bill, that we didn't really do a lot because, to be honest, Little Bossk was at school for the majority of the day. And then when he came back, we both sat down and watched the Hasbro live stream. And then after that, I was working on my video and stuff. So I really didn't have time to sort of enjoy May the 4th with my son. But yeah, the next day we watched a few episodes of the Mandalorian. He loves the Mandalorian, so we made up for it the next day. Alicio Bazan says, hello Tim, question for next week. Do you think we'll get a new Stormtrooper on a New Hope card back with rocker ankles and holster anytime soon? I really do hope so, my friend. We obviously need the Stormtrooper on a Star Wars card. And I do remember on the Hasbro Q&A that I attended, my good friend Chris from Bantha Skull did bring up the fact that the VC140 doesn't have rocker ankles, and because they're using that sculpt a lot to create other figures, maybe they should give it rocker ankles before they do any more, which was a perfectly good question if you ask me. But in terms of the one from A New Hope, you know, nerds out there will tell you that the armour is slightly different from the Rogue One Stormtrooper. It does need rocker ankles, it does need a holster, so they would need to make a few little tweaks to that sculpt to get it perfect for A New Hope. And I think they do know that. But I do remember overhearing a conversation with Sam, one of the designers, at New York Toy Fair last year, and he was talking about that exact same subject, that the Rogue One Stormtrooper isn't exactly what the New Hope Stormtrooper was. So it's on their minds. They've still got to do that one for the finish of the 96, so let's keep our fingers crossed for the definitive Stormtrooper. Patreon supporter Gary Moore says, question for next week. Do you think Hasbro will revisit the missing VC176 number? Time has now passed since the error, and yet they haven't addressed this. If not, please could you ask the question the next time you're invited to a Q&A session. I'll try my best, Gary. I think they will revisit that. Patrick said as much, but I think maybe the figures that have come out recently in the 180s and 190s, they were probably already assigned and probably already in pre-production and what have you. The cards might have been printed, the artwork was done for them or whatever. So maybe it'll take them a little bit more time to revisit 176, but yeah, it's going to be a bit annoying if they never do, and there's that little hole in the collection, but I think they know that, and I think they will address it at some point. The Worst says, Dear Mr. Tim Boss, my question for you goes as such. Is there a difference between the Vintage Collection Imperial TIE Fighter for the one that's just in the Star Wars box and the other that's in the Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back box? So this one here, if I can just get it in shot, is the Empire Strikes Back one. And the biggest difference between the two is that this one has the short wings, and the one with the Star Wars box has the one with the large wings, which apparently fall off quite a lot. I haven't actually opened my one of those. Also, another fact is that you get a figure in the one that's in the Star Wars box, a TIE Fighter pilot, obviously, and this Empire Strikes Back one you do not. He also goes on to ask what sort of star cases or acrylic cases I get for my 50th anniversary figures. So the ones that I have, I got from GW Acrylics, which is here, as you can see. Fits perfectly. Pretty expensive though. I think they were, you know, near on £30. They do distribute to the US if you are in the US through Ian's Display Accessories on Facebook. Also, I think there's a fairly new company, I think they're fairly new, called Gonk Toys. Have a look at them on Instagram or visit their website. I'm pretty sure they'll produce something as well. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering if the setup has anything to do with today's questions, it kind of really doesn't. I just wanted to sort of show you how the Endor theme has been quite prevalent this year. Of course, we've got Paploo, we've got the reissued Han Solo, we've got a half new Leia, we've got the 50th anniversary ATST driver, again another repack, but you know, they're completing the 96. But to bring this guy out as well as her, and obviously we're getting Jedi Luke. Is the speeder bike coming this year? Come on, Hasbro, give us the speeder bike in a vintage style box. It's got to be done. You're giving us all this other Endor stuff. Give us the speeder bike. Ari Prezolomsky says, amazing videos always. You are the reason I started collecting vintage collection. Thank you, mate. Question for next week. Do you collect any carded Black Series figures? Examples of the 40th anniversary, New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, 50th anniversaries, etc. Yes, I do. I'm a sucker for a vintage card regardless of scale. Loose figures I tend to go for 3.75, and the majority of my collection is 3.75. But yeah, the Black Series on the card backs, I'm a sucker for those, and I have pretty much all of them. I struggled to get the Luke Skywalker X-Wing. That was a really tough one to get, that exclusive, so I don't have that one, but I pretty much have all of the others. Smuggler's Canyon says, cracking vid as always, bit of a serious question. If only one could exist in time, which would you choose? Star Wars or the 90s rave scene? Oh my word. That is actually quite a tough question, because I did have some of my best nights out ever in my life in the early 90s rave scene. Lots of camaraderie, met some great friends, just had an awesome time. The music was fantastic. Still listen to the music now, but I think I'd probably pick Star Wars just because of the longevity of it being in my life all the way from being a kid, and I'm still loving it now. So if I had to pick one, it'd probably be Star Wars, but it's closer than you think. The 90s rave scene was a period in time which, if you weren't there for it, then you definitely missed out. It's a bit like the swinging 60s, I'd imagine, for the people that were like teenagers or in their early 20s in the 60s. It would have been a great time to be alive. Horror Fan says, question for next week, what do you think about the Black Series Ray lightsaber? Are you going to review it? Has that one actually been revealed? I think there was a rumour about that one. I'm not going to be reviewing it purely because I probably won't buy it. I don't actually own any of the lightsabers, and if I was going to be getting one, it would just be Luke Skywalker's green lightsaber from Return of the Jedi. That is the one I would want in my collection. Dallastar 3 says, hi Boss, question for next week. Does the re-release of previous vintage collection in any way devalue the original release? Just wondering, since I picked up the majority of the initial waves of figures that were released from VC01 to VC115. For example, the Royal Guard was quite rare, and now there has been a reissue. I know it's great for those that missed them first time around to get a chance to pick them up without spending a fortune, but will the originals hold their value? I really think that it comes down on a figure by figure basis, in my opinion. Like, if Ahsoka, for example, had won the fan vote, but would the original one that's been costing people $600 come down in value? I'm not sure if it would, because people have sort of set that value, haven't they? And no one's going to want to let it go for anything less than that. And then if you look at Anakin in his peasant disguise, that re-release has really shattered the value of the other one, because the original one in the UK, for example, was going for at least £100 before the re-release. And then when that re-release has come out, it's killed it. You can go on eBay now and pick it up for £20, I think I saw one for. So it really depends on the character, figure by figure basis. But I would say in general, yes, it does affect the value very, very slightly. But some of them have bounced back already. For example, Leia Hoth and Han Solo Bespin. I think those two have bounced back quite a bit. Yoda Skywalker says, hello Mr. Bossk, what do you think of Hasbro revisiting prototype vehicles for the vintage collection? They did a few in the Power of the Force line back in the day. They did indeed, and they were pretty awesome. I remember the Snow Speeder, that was like the Macquarie Snow Speeder. But man, we have enough problems trying to get them to do, you know, actual proper vehicles from the films and the TV shows in the vintage collection. You know, looking at prototypes, it's just a non-starter. You know, we need things like this first and foremost before they even look at the prototypes. But it's a good idea. I mean, you know, if they were producing loads and loads of stuff, then I'd be all for it. Just Capster says, here's a question for next time. Would you see them making the Dark Trooper? And if so, based on the Mandalorian or the older versions from the back in the day? Got to love the vintage collection. Love your videos. Would love a playset with a much needed updated EV99 and a Manaman. Yeah, that's from last week. 100% agree. That'd be awesome. In terms of the Dark Trooper, yes, I can definitely see them doing it. It'll probably come out in the Black Series first. We will eventually get it in the vintage collection, and it will be based on the Mandalorian version. I can't see them ever going back to the other versions. It's a completely different phase of Dark Trooper anyway. And obviously the Mandalorian is the current thing, so it would have to be based on that. But yeah, we might be waiting a little while for that one. They'll definitely get to it at some point. Donald Allen says, hey boss, do you think we'll ever get a Black Series Armourer helmet? I mainly collect vintage collection, but I buy whatever Armourer merchandise I can find. Thanks. Yeah, that's a pretty good idea. I could see them doing that. I mean, it is a female character, but does that matter? Do Hasbro think they'll get less sales because it's a female character? I think she was a pretty popular character, wasn't it? In terms of the helmet just sitting on someone's display, I think everyone would want that collects the helmets. People that maybe want to wear it, then obviously you're going to be a bit restricted if you're a male, I would imagine. I don't think you're going to be going to a convention just as the Armourer particularly. I don't know. I may be wrong on that, but that's how I kind of see it. But You never know, Hasbro might do it. It's a decent looking helmet for sure. Marky D 1967 says, hi Bossk, question for next week. I have reached that critical point in my collection where I'm completely out of room to display my open items. My shelves are packed to the brim with 6-inch Black Series 3.75 and 5 POA, vehicles, playsets, etc. Have you ever reached that point in your display collection? And if so, how do you deal with it? Did you box and pack up a subset of figures to make room for new stuff? I'm trying to figure out how to make room, and I'm thinking all 5 POA figures will need to go in bins, which is a shame. Any advice on optimizing space? I don't really have any advice on optimizing space. It's just, you know, you've got your shelf space and that's what you've got to use really. I'm no example of how to do a collection room in terms of space. I have very little space myself, and I am at that point myself as well. My carded collection on my wall, I have to remove figures that I just, you know, think aren't as good as new ones that are coming out. So the Mandalorian ones are all on the wall, and I had to sacrifice things like some of the ones from the Phantom Menace. In terms of my loose collection, yep, I'm definitely at that point as well. And I think you're right. Maybe the 5 POA figures, especially if you've got a super articulated version of that figure as well, then I don't think you really need it. But maybe some of the solo figures you'd want to keep to fill out those dioramas and set up scenes and what have you. But yeah, if you've got a, say for example, a Weequay from the Power of the Force, there's not really much point of having him out when you've got the Weequay from the vintage collection. But I feel your pain, my friend. I'm in exactly the situation, and I just need a bigger collection room, and I'm hoping one day in the future it'll happen. Alright then guys, that's it for another week. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Thank you so much for getting me to 16,000 subscribers. That is just unbelievable. I can't thank you all enough. Thank you for watching my videos. Thank you for dropping likes. Thank you for commenting. And if you do have a question for next week's episode, be sure to leave it in the comment section below, and hopefully you'll be featured next week. Thank you all for watching, guys, and we shall see you on the next one.